Welcome to another episode of No Script, No Problem here on Believe, the #1 podcast network for professionals. Do you believe? If you enjoy the show, please remember to subscribe and rate it. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can also find it on Believe.com and at Believe Podcast. Follow me on social media. That's X, Blue Sky, Post News, Instagram, Threads, Facebook, pretty much everywhere. If you're interested in advertising on the show, please contact Believe at Believe.com. All right, let's get started. I'm excited for you to hear from my guest today, Maria Baltazzi. She's a longtime producer and showrunner for reality television and docuseries. She's done shows like Survivor and Sarah Palin's Alaska. But she's here today to talk about her new book, Take a Shot at Happiness: How to Write, Direct, and Produce the Life You Want. It is a great gift for anybody for Christmas that you really care about. This is definitely something you should buy for somebody. But before we talk to Maria, I want to talk about Netflix finally releasing their engagement numbers. First time ever. Christmas came a little bit early. Okay, Netflix this week decides, hey, it's been forever. We're finally going to show you exactly who's watching what and for how long. All right, so they're calling it What We Watched, a Netflix engagement report, and it shows exactly who watched what and for how long in the first 6 months of 2023. And we're talking about 18,000 titles, nearly 100 billion hours of content consumed, which is insane when you think about it. It gives me a little bit more hope that long form storytelling is not dying, right? That people are actually watching movies and TV series. So a little bit of data here. Viewers spent 812 million hours watching The Night Agent, which was #1 on their list, okay? I watched one episode of The Night Agent and that was plenty for me. I ended my run on The Night Agent right there. But apparently people freaking loved this show. Ginny and Georgia was #2. That's season 2 of Ginny and Georgia was #2. But if you add both seasons of Ginny and Georgia, that is the most popular program on Netflix for the first half of 2023. And again, I've never seen an episode. So kind of remarkable, but I'm just one dude. 283 million subscribers worldwide on Netflix. So that's why I call it the Cheesecake Factory of content. There's something for everybody. Talk a little bit about unscripted. Reality dating show Love is Blind season 4 was 17th on the list with 230 million hours viewed. Add all those seasons together, and Love is Blind, okay, is the 11th most watched program in the first half of the year for Netflix. That's insane. 440 million hours of Love is Blind watched, okay? If you compare the budget for Love is Blind to all these huge shows like Stranger Things or Wednesday, it's insane how well Love is Blind is done. And all of the producers, the camera operators, editors, these people who work on Love is Blind deserve their flowers. There's been a lot of criticism of Love is Blind, but they are doing this for a fraction of the budget that The Witcher gets, right? Or a fraction of the budget that The Sandman has, right? Or Ozark, or any of these big shows that you see on Netflix, and they don't get any promotion, right? It really is a credit to what Love is Blind has built. I'm not sitting here saying I love the show or that it's one of the greatest shows ever, but I'm giving credit where credit is due. Perfect Match and Selling Sunset also did well on the unscripted side. In terms of docuseries, everybody remembers Harry and Meghan, right? Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's 6-part docuseries. How did that do? A combined 62 million hours. Now, the top docuseries was MH370, the plane that disappeared. So, people love the mysteries, the conspiracies. That was watched for almost 119 million hours. One of the surprises that I kind of found was Arnold Schwarzenegger's Fubar, again, a show I've never seen. That was in the top 10, 266 million hours viewed. I was a child of the 80s when Schwarzenegger was doing Terminator and Commando, Predator, and to think that he's got a hit show on, Netflix now in 2023 is kind of insane, but it shows he's got staying power. Outer Banks, my guilty pleasure. I know it's not the greatest show, but I still watch it. Outer Banks did really well. Season 3, 402,500,000 hours. And if you add all 3 seasons up, Outer Banks is the 4th most watched program in the first half of 2023. I think it's really important to notice how much the foreign language shows play in Netflix's success. La Reina del Sur, season 3, was the 7th most watched choice on the platform. This is like a Spanish language telenovela based on a novel. And this show is killing it. 429,600,000 hours on Netflix. The most watched film in the first half of 2023 was The Mother, starring Jennifer Lopez, with 250 million viewing hours. So again, J-Lo, international star, people know who she is. And, look, The Mother is nothing special, but I think it shows that plan of Netflix building a movie around a star, whether it's Extraction and Chris Hemsworth, or I just saw, Michael Fassbender with The Killer. They take a big star with broad appeal and they give them a platform like Netflix that's global and allow them to build success. I think for me, what all this shows is that the streaming wars are over. Netflix has won. Forget about it. Whether you're Max or you're Disney Plus, it's over. This is Netflix spiking the football and saying, check out the scoreboard, right? Like, we're finally able to show our cards. We're finally able to show exactly what the score is. Now you show us what you've got, because we know if Max and Disney Plus, Apple, Amazon, whoever, Paramount Plus, Peacock, if they show how many people are watching what they're putting out, it's not even going to be close. It's going to be embarrassing. So I think this is really Netflix finally saying not only are we profitable, but we've got the numbers to show now. And look, they should have done this a long, long time ago. I think it's not fair to the producers and the actors, the directors, the people who make the content for them, as well as kind of the advertisers now that they're doing advertising. I think it's good that they're now doing it, but it's time for everybody in streaming to be transparent. And I think that's going to make some waves. I'm very curious to see if the other streamers follow suit. It's kind of daring them to do it, and they're going to have to at some point. This to me is a major flex for Netflix, and I'm not the biggest Netflix fan, as most people know. They're going to do this twice a year, so we'll see what the back half of 2023 looks like. I'm sure it's going to be all about Suits. All right, enough about Netflix. My guest is Maria Baltazzi. She is a fantastic executive producer, creative executive, and director who was intimately involved in the early days of producing the hit reality series Survivor, which incredibly is still on today and still doing well on CBS. She was on the island for season 1. Yes, season 1. And she remained on the show for several seasons afterwards. She also served as showrunner on Sarah Palin's Alaska for TLC and a number of other programs. I met Maria when she served as showrunner and executive producer on a Discovery Channel series called One Man Army. And she taught me a great deal about organization, communication, and having fun in tough circumstances. Maria has traveled all over the world and raises money with walks and various experiences that she organizes. And now she's put all of her experience with producing and traveling into a book. Take a Shot at Happiness: How to Write, Direct, and Produce the Life You Want. This book is Maria's insights about being happy, learned through her time in the entertainment industry, observing people and events, traveling, and studying well-being. We'll get into all this and much more. Here's the interview. Enjoy. The book is Take a Shot at Happiness: How to Write, Direct, and Produce the Life You Want by Maria Baltazzi. Maria, we've known each other for so long. Thank you so much for doing the podcast, and congratulations on the book.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It was quite a labor of love, and I'm glad that it's now getting out into the world.
Just the fact that you wrote a book is incredible. The fact that you've been to 7 continents, you were one of the original producers for the first 10 seasons on Survivor, and we worked together on a super fun show called One Man Army for Discovery Channel. But you've done so much. When did you decide, hey, I'm going to write a book?
Well, doing the shows that we do, you know how intense our days can be. And what I was beginning to find is that especially being a showrunner, I mean, everything falls on your shoulders, no matter where it is in the production process or what's happening during the day, you are responsible. So whether you are with a guerrilla team of just, 3 or 4 as your crew and you're in some remote area, or you have 120 people that you are managing every day, it's a lot of stress day in and day out. And what I was finding for myself is that I almost cared too much, in that other people's stuff was becoming my stuff. I would get so concerned about the well-being, the happiness of my team, that I was taking on that emotion, and I was finding that it was adversely affecting me, and it wasn't sustainable. So really, my choice to start an inner journey was out of self-defense and self-preservation. I love what we get to do. I mean, I love storytelling so much, but it was just emotionally just too hard on me. So I started with one book. A book turned into a course, turned into eventually certifications, and then a degree. And it was just because I wanted to be healthy enough to show up for myself and for my team, for whatever production we're on. And at some point, somewhat early in my journey, because I was seeing how beneficial it was, I wanted to then share it with other people. I mean, really, anybody can benefit from my book. I mean, I think that, happiness is a universal, well-being, mindfulness, those are universals. However, I take a creative approach with my book. And so the book really is geared towards other creatives. When we put shows together, we create content. So if you can create content, why not create the contents of your life?
Specifically at this time, right, where the media landscape is insane. We're all kind of trying to figure out what's going to happen next. Streaming is taking over the linear world, and we've got SAG striking, and in unscripted, things are very shaky, right? How do you tell people, like, how do you encourage people to find happiness within this kind of topsy-turvy landscape of entertainment?
It really starts with the choice. How do you want to be in life? Do you always want to be spiraling out and being, reactive to things? Or do you want to find a way to create a baseline that is sustainable for you, that gives you happiness, peace, joy, contentment, confidence, esteem, all of those things. So the real starting point, it was my starting point, everything I teach, I mean, these are all things that I have done and have found very helpful, is that you make it a choice. And then you do something every day that is going to support that well-being choice that you've made. And then it just really depends on what it is you specifically need. I mean, I might need to work more on being, more loving. You may need to work more on just your general health. So we have different things that comprise our overall happiness that we focus on, but you start with the intention, and then you do intentional activities to support that choice.
You've studied the space of well-being and happiness extensively. Talk to me a little bit about the science behind happiness, the science behind kind of getting the best out of your life, getting the best out of who you can be.
And what I relay is my experience, and out of my experience is my point of view. Somebody else might have a different point of view than myself, but I feel that so much of our state of being, how we are in the world, really starts with our thoughts, what is going on in our heads. And what you do through practices like mindfulness is you create awareness of the kinds of thoughts that you are having. Are they productive? Are they unproductive? And with that awareness, then you make, a choice of how you want to react to that situation. So we're all thinking beings, and you have a thought, you have a thought, you have a thought, and in between each thought is a gap, and it's in that gap that you have the opportunity to choose differently. And it's by cultivating awareness, consciousness of how you are thinking, that then you can do something about it. It's only with awareness and choice can you actually affect change.
One of the things I've always admired about you is the travel and the exploration and raising money for charity. You've been to all 7 continents. You walk marathons all over the world. And I've always admired that. You run an organization, Sojourn Explorers, and you help organize taking people all over the world. How does exploration, how does travel come into happiness and in terms of finding who you are, making yourself better, improving yourself? How does travel and exploration come into play?
Wow, huge, 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 huge. When you travel, and especially if you travel with an open mind, you're removing yourself from your everyday world, from the stresses, from the same people, the same routine. You're taking yourself out of that. And just by virtue of that alone, you are putting yourself into a place where you can sit and think about life, that you can contemplate what is working and what is not working from a longer lens, so to speak. That you're not in it. You can stand back and look at it. And so much of travel is coming back, and especially if you set that intention, is coming back different, is coming back with a new lens, a new way of seeing things. You're looking through a different prism. And travel really allows for that. And the exploration part of it, when you think about travel, the way I look at it is that you are having 2 journeys. You have your outer journey where you're, climbing the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu, or you are in the bush, following a pride of lions. That's your physical, outer journey. And then that experience, and especially if guided, then becomes and impacts your inner journey, your inner exploration. So that outer exploration actually can be a catalyst for inner exploration.
What would you say in all your travels, has there been a moment where you felt like something that was transformational, that really kind of taught you a lesson about happiness?
Well, I would not so much. Well, a macro was that through all my travels, I've learned not to judge a book by its cover. And I think one of the things that really brought that to light, and I'll go back to the happiness question, was when I was doing Expedition Africa, Stanley's journey to find Dr. Livingstone for the History Channel. And we literally had to trace the journey that Stanley did, the journey that we wanted to do. And we had to go through every community and get permission. Every village, every speck of a property, we had to go and get. You know what that's like. I mean, that is a very laborious and necessary process, because one person doesn't agree to have you crossing their property, you're shut down. So you would go into these villages and you could be talking to somebody who's got a Bob Marley t-shirt on. Maybe it's a little discolored, maybe they're a little chunky. They're not all that put together. And you could be talking to the chief of the village. You could be talking to the elder, the one who actually makes the decision as to whether or not you can come through their village, to do their shoot. So that was the first time. I mean, that was such a great example of, you just never know who you're talking to. And then, you can talk to someone who, and I would say that this actually came from belonging to the Explorers Club, which is the Explorers Club. It's where all of our modern day explorers of most of any real note belong to. They're the ones who go into space. They're the ones who dive the deepest parts of the oceans. They're climbing the 7 summits. I mean, they're out in the world really doing stuff. So when you go to different events that are with the Explorers Club, you cannot discount anybody that you're talking to, because that person could have just summited Everest and done it in record time. You just have to be open. And that's what travel and adventure and exploration has taught me, is just to be curious, to be okay with looking around the corner and seeing, what's there. And when I look at happiness, I look at happiness as a state of being, a baseline. That doesn't mean that you don't get upset about things. That doesn't mean that you don't spin out. I'm Greek. Being a Greek girl, you, by culture, you are living at the top of your lungs and the ends of your nerves. I mean, we're a very, very vibrant, group of people, culture. And so for as much work as I have done, I still get triggered. However, the difference is, and part of going and traveling and having these experiences is that you learn, you have that openness to help you learn to manage those triggers better. You learn different ways to navigate your challenges and do it in a way where you don't stay there for as long. And when you get to the other side of it, you're still emotionally and physically intact.
They've done studies that social media has a lot of negative effects for teenagers and for young folks. Do you feel like some of the things in your book and some of your methods could really help folks to improve their happiness, who are really kind of drowning in the mental health issues that come along with some of the negative side effects of social media?
Yeah, yes, I do. I do feel that there are teachings in the book that help with that. I actually, talk about us being in a narcissistic society. Not that you or I or somebody we love are, no, we're not narcissistic. However, what that does is I think we have an opportunity to hold a mirror up to ourselves and to see, even when you're looking on, social media, and you're looking at somebody who seems to have this idyllic lifestyle, and they have perfect skin and a perfect body and a perfect all of this, to use that as why is that triggering you? To ask those questions about, why you're triggered by somebody who seems to have a life that you don't have. And is that really the life that you want to have? So I think that the negative messaging that can come out of social media can really be fertile ground for asking reflective questions. when you really think about what does it take to be, that influencer that is all over the place. You don't know how hard it is to be on the road. You don't know the hours that they keep. You don't know the conditions that they have to travel in. And to ask yourself those kinds of questions, and then, is that really what you want? Do you really, really, really want that lifestyle? I mean, years ago, I started to get into modeling, and soon realized it was great to say, oh, I'm a model, and to see yourself in a picture. But then when I started to think what you had to really do to get to be at a famous or supermodel status, it's just, I didn't want to do that. So it's like, it's really looking at, do you truly want that lifestyle? Do you want to do what it takes?
Somehow the modeling escaped your bio. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. So, and somehow that escaped our conversations on set. You never really mentioned that.
It wasn't a big window of time. I mean, it was a short-lived window of time. And like I said, I soon realized that I didn't want to do what it took to be that.
I know. I'm joking. I know two of the things that you encourage are taking photographs and then writing. Can you talk about how those help to bring about happiness?
So writing helps. Writing can be so cathartic. Writing can take a rant. It's just a brain dump. You're not worried about editing. You're not worried about grammar. You're just writing to just purge it out of your system. And that in itself, feels so good. I mean, I have written through my emotions for many, many, many years. I used to keep diaries until I lost one. And I thought, if somebody ever reads this, so I'm very selective about it. So the writing exercises are very specific to a point that I'm making. And writing also helps to take that blob of emotion and start to give it shape and start to organize it so it becomes a more coherent thought. And then when you share that in community, you see how other people, I mean, you don't have to, but you see how other people may have navigated a similar situation. So that's the writing part of it. And then imagery, when you think about the thoughts that we have, at least for me, those are images in your head. You see pictures in your head. So when you take an image, you can, especially when it's in relation to a specific concept, you are able to put your mind on just that aspect. And it almost becomes, it did for me, it becomes its own kind of meditation. And then you look at that image afterwards, and you can maybe see something in that image that informs you that you didn't see when you actually took the image. So you have the experience of doing the image, taking it, and what that brought to you, how that settled you, how that focused you. And then you have looking at it in reflection, and what do you now see? What do you now feel? So those together, I think, are very, very powerful. And then in community, if you choose to share it, I think is very complete and supportive.
I got to ask you about Survivor. I always say that there's something very special that happened on the island that first season. So, and I think, I mean, maybe you can tell me, like, what was special about being on that island season 1? And could you ever have imagined that it would be 2023 and we're still seeing new episodes of Survivor? Jeff Probst is still saying the tribe has spoken.
What was so interesting about that time is the unknown. You didn't know that you were creating a television phenomena. We had no idea. We were just on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis trying to figure out how we were going to shoot and how we were going to tell our stories, and dealing with the fact that we were in the middle of the South China Sea and exposed to the elements. And it was an exploration on all levels. I mean, the first season we had, these aren't exact numbers, but by way of example, there was maybe 80 of us that did everything. I mean, we were testing the challenges, and then you were on the beach with the contestants, and you had to then do all kinds of stuff behind the scenes to get tribal council ready. It's like we were involved in every aspect of the camera guys. Oh my gosh, they work hard anyways, no matter what season. But that season, they would be shooting on the beach and then have to go and shoot the challenges, and then some of them were then going on to shoot tribal council on those days. So it was a magical time in the unknowingness and just the raw exposure to the elements, And I always said that the time to have been part of Survivor is when we didn't know what it was and what it was going to be, and figuring it out. And that's when I like to work on projects anyways, is at the beginning, when you're trying to figure out what is this going to be, how are we going to tell this story? That to me is challenging and fun. And maybe that's why I like adventure, why I like exploration, why I like travel, is that I love the unknown. I like embracing change and just being open to whatever happens. But there was such a camaraderie. We were all so close because we were just in everybody's business, every day. We were just all intertwined. We had the editors on location with us. So, we were just this little cocoon that did everything. So it was definitely a very special time. It was not as compartmentalized. And then the next year, again, don't quote me on numbers, but by way of example, what was 80 season 1 became 300. So
you changed television history.
Yeah.
Right. That season 1 finale. I'll have to go back and look, but I think you had 40 million eyeballs.
I think it was 54.
54?
We were getting Super Bowl numbers the first few seasons. We were getting Super Bowl numbers. It was crazy.
When you look at that, and now, like, it's interesting you say that, because I just saw a study that streaming is now getting more viewers than linear. So this past couple cycles, past couple quarters, streaming has now surpassed linear broadcast and cable, getting more viewers. Is it kind of shocking to think about getting 54 million viewers? And that was 2000, 2001, season 1, season 2. And we're now 21, 22 years later, but still that's that long ago. And now so many people have cut the cord. They're not even watching CBS, and Netflix didn't even exist at that point. Is it crazy?
It is crazy. And I remember I used to do the last episode. That was always mine. And I remember season 1 sitting in my living room, because I would take, then we had tapes, that VHS tapes that we would have all of our footage, and they would have time code on it. And I remember sitting in my living room saying, I have in my living room the answer to the thing that everybody who watches Survivor wants to know, and that's who won. It was that tape was sitting in my living room, and just the thought of that was a bit mind-boggling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Imagine what you could have gotten for that. Imagine the value of that.
Yeah.
10 seasons of Survivor. When you kind of look back, clearly that was a huge influence on your life, your career. What do you take away? What kind of big picture stuff do you take away from Survivor that maybe is in the book?
Well, the thing that always struck me, and I do talk about this in my book, is you would get to the end. So as I just mentioned, the final episode was always my episode, and I spent all those days, 39 days, in Australia was 42 days, with the contestants. I spent a lot of time in interviews, and it was my way that I would show up with the very first crew at first light, and then I would stay until they were pretty much going to bed and the last crews were going to bed. So I was there all day, and I just always wanted to just be around them. Yes, from a story standpoint, but I was also concerned. Those are raw conditions, and so I would be concerned also for their welfare, just on a human level. I would be with them to the very end. And so you're doing these last interviews, especially as you're getting ready to, for the final vote, and interview after interview, you would hear, and this would definitely be more post merge, where you would have a contestant sitting in front of you saying, this is really not me. This is just me playing a game. And I would say, no, it's really you. How could it not be? You're behaving this way. It is the real you. And what that brought to mind was when I was in film school and we were studying, the great directors. There was a film by Bergman that was called Persona. And Persona is the story of a farmer who was very Christian and loving, and it was during a time of war, that he was very peaceful. And as the war was coming more and more into his family and threatening his family, he was becoming more and more aggressive. So what was happening is that a peaceful, loving man was being put into a circumstance that was pushing him to bring out another aspect of his person that didn't exist prior, because he had never been in that situation before. And that's the way I would look at the survivors, is that it was Persona. It was Bergman's film, in that they were in a situation they hadn't been in before that pushed them to go in a direction that even surprised themselves. So the takeaway is, you don't truly know what you are capable of until you are put into a circumstance that you have never been in before. And you may be really surprised in either direction. You may be surprised in the direction of being the worst human being, or you may be the best human being. You just don't know, because you haven't been in that situation. And that still to this day has stayed with me.
Where is the next amazing place you are going, Maria?
Morocco.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Why? What is it? Is this a sojourn?
this is actually a conference that takes place in Marrakesh, and then I'll spend a few days afterwards in Morocco.
Where is the one place for people like me who haven't, I've traveled, but not nearly as much as I would like. Of all your travels, where do you tell someone like me this, you got to go here, and why?
Africa. Africa changed me as a human. That is no exaggeration. And I love, 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 love taking people to Africa, because then I get to re-experience through someone like yourself who hasn't been to Africa, the first giraffe, the first elephant, the first lion. And it's so exciting. When I went to Africa, which was a number of years ago for a show, I went with such trepidation. I was so afraid of that continent, of what was going to sting, bite, chew, or have me as a snack. And I literally would sit in the center of the seat of the vehicle, that our production vehicle. I would sit in the back center of the seat to be as far away from any door that could open as I could possibly get in a small vehicle. And I just wouldn't get out. But at some point, to do my job, I had to get out of the vehicle. And slowly and eventually, I landed one day. 11 weeks later, I left, and I was jumping out of the vehicles, chasing after stuff. And I've never been the same. It just excited me so profoundly much. So that's what I say. If people want to go to Africa, I say, go. It will change your life. And to spend the money. Don't try and do a budget trip to Africa. Spend the money, especially if it's going to only be once in your lifetime. You will not regret a cent of it. You will be well taken care of at the safari camps. It's in their best interest to make sure that their guests are safe and well fed. And you will forever remember it.
Awesome. The book is Take a Shot at Happiness. Tell everybody where they can get it.
Well, you can get it wherever books are sold. You can get it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Goodreads, Target, Walmart. You can get it at Literary in Italy. So wherever books are sold, you can get it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Or you can also go to my website, which is just my name, mariabaltazzi.com, and then you can choose any one of those places and more to purchase.
Fantastic. Congratulations. You poured your heart and soul into this. This is so cool.
Thank you.
Before I go, if you're looking to donate to an organization or a cause this holiday season, here's 3 recommendations. The Cameron Boyce Foundation, that's thecameronboycefoundation.org. Cure Epilepsy, that's cureepilepsy.org, or the Epilepsy Foundation, which is at epilepsy.com. If you're wondering, hey, Steve, why are you telling us to donate to 3 different epilepsy organizations? It's because, yeah, you guessed it, I've got epilepsy. So I've had it since I was 14, and I am very fortunate that mine is relatively under control thanks to some great doctors and some medicine that seems to be working. Unfortunately, there are folks out there who have epilepsy, and they're not as lucky as I am. They're still having seizures. There's kids out there who struggle every day. They have multiple seizures, and it's so tough financially as well as emotionally and medically on their folks, on them. They're just trying to live a normal life. And these 3 organizations I've found, are really trying to find a cure. They're trying to support these families and try and get information to these families, because it's a tough disease. It's very much a trial and error when you're dealing with epilepsy. You're mixing and matching meds to try and find that right combination. And sometimes it is surgery that's the answer. Sometimes you try surgery and then it turns out it's a medication. And it's very much a mysterious ailment. And I empathize with everybody who goes through it and everybody who deals with it. But I'll just say, if you got a few bucks left over at the end of the year and you want to give to a good cause, any of those 3 organizations, the Cameron Boyce Foundation, Cure Epilepsy, or the Epilepsy Foundation, they're all really great, and they're all trying to find a cure for epilepsy, which, as I said, it's very personal to me. That's my 2 cents right there. And that's going to do it for another episode of No Script, No Problem. For everybody listening, please remember to subscribe, download, and rate the show with 5 stars. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and TuneIn. You can also find it on Believe.com and at Believe Podcasts. Follow me on social media, X, Post News, at Steve Berkowitz, and on Instagram and Threads at Steve M. Berkowitz. If you got questions for me, send them over to noscriptnoproblempodcast@gmail.com. If you're interested in advertising on the show, please contact Believe at Believe.com. Thanks for listening. Until next time, I'm Steve Berkowitz for No Script, No Problem.